Welcome, everyone. I'm Rob Sahutsky.
And I'm Zach Miles. You're listening to Babble of the Beltway.
Welcome back, everyone, to week 20 of Babble of the Beltway, otherwise known as the Divisional Round. Zach, you know the custom. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was also to all of our listeners, I apologize for the delayed release of this week's podcast. It was my fault. I had some stuff I was working on earlier in the week, and then Sergi decided not to show up. So then today, we were like, yo, we got to get this. So today, Thursday, and tomorrow's Friday, because that's how the days of the week work, you are going to listen to this and be very happy that you did. Anyways, I appreciate you asking, Rob. My day and my weekend and my week in general were pretty good. I don't remember the weekend that much at this point. I have such a short memory that it doesn't really, it's all life. It all just blends together, but that's okay. But I did sub at the school that my aunt works at yesterday, which was really nice because being able to work with her in like a different way that I've never been able to in the past was pretty awesome. So it was a good weekend. How about yours, man?
Yeah, mine was good too. I'm really glad you had that like Rebecca Black moment there where you explained to us how like the days of the week work in order. Like yesterday was Thursday, today was Friday. That was fantastic. Yeah, weekend was really chill.
It's for our Sri Lankan audience. They may not know the English version of it.
That's true. That's true. We're an educational podcast, everyone.
We are. Yeah, we've converted as of right now.
But no, you're absolutely right. It being Thursday, now that I think back to it, it's going to be hard to kind of pull out the events of Saturday and Sunday off the top of our brains. But thankfully, we did write the script Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, like almost all of it. So we'll be set. We might have to do a little refreshers if you hear like well, you won't hear a long 5-second pause because I'll just edit that out. I got the keys to the kingdom,
we'll get rid of it. Yeah,
I could just
you're
cut
not
that.
allowed to hear it. Yeah, you guys can't hear our mistakes. Absolutely not.
You're just going to hear a nice, clean little version, and you're going to think it was clean. You're just not going to hear any of the crap that I have to get rid of. Without further ado, this was a fantastic weekend, and we're excited to tell you all about it. Here's Weekend Recap.
Weekend Recap.
3, 2, 1.
All right, so we had 4 matchups. All of these games somehow, some way, were decided by a basically game-winning score on the final play of the game. I am not aware of this ever happening in the past. I personally can't remember it ever happening. I feel like I've watched a lot of football. I don't know if you
like anecdotally, I have no recollection of something like this. Like I have no, like in my life as watching a football, like a weekend like this, I've never seen something like this before.
Yeah.
Where every single game was so close at the end, even if they weren't so close to start.
Yeah, all 3 of the first games were a field goal to break a tie as the time expired in the fourth quarter. That in itself is insane. I can't even talk because of how hyped I am. The Chiefs-Bills game, we'll get to that in a second, but that one just blew the lid off the whole weekend, and they were like, we see your 3 really good games, and we're just going to raise the ante so much.
Yeah.
But we're going to save that one because we have a couple other games to talk to that are equally as well, I'm not going to say equally, but are also exciting. Because I think Chiefs-Bills was hands down game of the year. I can't even point at another game. But
for me, the only thing that was close to it was Chargers-Raiders at the end of the season. But that wasn't playoff football. This is playoff football.
Absolutely wild. But we're going to warm up. We're going to talk about Bengals at Titans first. The Bengals defeated the number 1 seed Titans 19-16, and was this game a defensive struggle. Now, if you told me the Bengals were going to win a playoff game, I'd be like, what? If you told me the Bengals with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd were going to win a playoff game because of their defense, I would be like, that's a funny joke anyway. But that's actually what happened. This Bengals defense pretty much rocked the Titans for a lot of the game. Mike Hilton had possibly play of the year on a batted screen that he then intercepted and ran like 30, 40 yards. And those are the hardest plays to make as a defender. They're the highest degree of difficulty because you have to position yourself correctly while a giant offensive lineman is trying to ruin your life. You have to bat the ball into the air, and then you have to be athletic enough to catch it and run, and he nailed every single one of those. It was a wild play. It was a counter to the Titans basically moving right down the field. It was probably the play that flipped the game and kept the Bengals in it to allow them to win late. And, of course, in typical Bengals fashion, Eli Apple then immediately ruined everything by doing the most obvious taunt where he stood over Ryan Tannehill and just talked trash to him, despite the fact that he wasn't involved in any way, shape, or form in the play. That is textbook Eli Apple, and I just don't even know what to say about that.
That was New York Giants, Ohio State Eli Apple at his finest.
I just like, whenever I watch Eli Apple play, I don't know what's more likely, him getting torched or him just being unlikable. I feel like they're both so common that I just can't tell you which one's going to happen in any given
honestly,
game.
it's mutually exclusive. I really believe that they go hand in hand, and there's no question, like, for me at all.
So in this game, there was one passing touchdown, period, in the entire game. And that was a absurdly beautiful Ryan Tannehill pass. That's not something you're going to hear frequently on this podcast or ever, so we have to shout out and give credit where it's due. It was a back shoulder pass to A.J. Brown late in the third quarter. It was just a one-hand snag, and it looked like that ball was just brought in by a magnet. It was disgusting. I watched that, and so many just crazy plays in this game, and really this entire week. So while there was only one touchdown, don't worry, there were plenty of passes that were caught for big plays. It's just, it was in the form of 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
This is weird, though, because out of those 4 interceptions, I would argue only one of them was actually a bad throw. I think the other 3 were just really incredible defensive efforts. I mean, like we said earlier, the swatted ball, that was just insane. Or just like really gross wide receiver ricochets. But I at the same point in time, if it's the end of the game and you need to score, you probably shouldn't be throwing the ball to anyone except A.J. Brown if you're Ryan Tannehill. So maybe that's their fault anyway. The Titans ran the ball fairly well, but it was not King Henry.
No,
it wasn't. Foreman actually had 4 more yards than Derrick Henry, despite the fact that he had 16 fewer carries.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, this game plan did not go the way the Titans intended. And I think that's more of an issue of the fact that when Derrick Henry's on the field, you're putting 8 in the box. When Foreman's on the field, you're like, all right, well, they're giving Henry a rest. I guess we don't have to stack the box anymore. And so he gashed him for some pretty big runs. The Bengals, on the other hand, not efficient on the ground. 17 rushes, only 3.6 a carry, but Mixon did end up grabbing a touchdown. So, as you can tell, this game, a story of defense. Somehow, some way, the Bengals defense stepped up. And I wish I could explain this. I wish I could say, oh, but it's Joe Burrow. But I can't explain to you how Joe Burrow makes the defense better. I really can't explain it to you.
It's Joe Cool, man. That's why. Joe Cool. He got on the sideline. He was like, I can't do it. You guys need to do it. And they were like, yes, sir. Like, Joe Burrow, to me, looks like Matthew McConaughey's living reincarnation. I guess an incarnation of Matthew McConaughey.
I would agree with that. I think the wildest statistic that you're going to hear from this game is that the winning team, the Cincinnati Bengals, had Joe Burrow get sacked 9 times. They were sacked 9 times in a playoff game, and the Bengals still won. It's that's wrong. That's wrong.
It's happened one time ever. It was Donovan McNabb, I believe, was the statistic that came up on the television.
The good news for the Bengals is that McPherson is Justin Tucker-esque. I mean, they got this young kid in there who, as he goes on the field, says, guess we're going to the AFC Championship, which, by the way, Holy crap! You're saying that as the youngest person, like in the
Yeah.
locker room and a
Yeah,
kicker.
the amount of confidence, dude. The amount of confidence.
You better not miss after that. So shout out to the Bengals for making that work. And I love, I'm fine with it. I love the attitude of the Bengals. As a Ravens fan,
Yeah.
I obviously would rather it be the Ravens, but this team has an attitude. They have a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to fight you. It doesn't matter. They're just going to fight you. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens next week. But Zach, do you have any other comments? Are you ready to move on to the next game?
No. It's. I think you pretty much touched on everything. I mean, it's like if you were to make the Lions a good football team, that's the Bengals.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the way that I'd be able to explain that or express it.
You mean the 2023 Lions?
Yes, yeah, the 2023 Lions, the Super Bowl champions.
It's coming.
Lions. I know.
Winter's
oh,
coming.
dude, I'm excited. But we'll talk about that.
Oh, we do have to take a quick round up the horses and celebrate moment. When we had our hot takes earlier this season, we said the Tennessee Titans would get the number 1 seed, and then they would be a one and done, and they would be immediately gone, knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. And we said this because they got that 8-3, and they had the weakest remaining schedule. They still lost to some bad teams like the Texans, and managed to hold on to that 1 seed, right? Thanks to the Bengals, ironically. And then they were ousted in the first round by the Bengals. So that was a prediction that we nailed on the head.
Even though I think we predicted the Bengals to lose last week, but did we? No, we predicted them to win.
I don't remember what the podcast
was it me
predicted.
Or Sergi?
I had
can't
the
remember
Bengals.
either. No, I just can't remember who did it. If it was me, I think I said I wanted the Bengals to win. It doesn't matter.
I think Sergi did
just say I
predict the
was
Titans
wrong.
on the podcast, but
yeah, that's
it
okay.
happens.
That's okay. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so next up, we'll talk about Rams at Buccaneers. And honestly, guys, this game wasn't really much of a game for like the first 2.5 quarters. You know what I mean? Like, or however long the time was. It felt like it was forever. It felt like Tom Brady was done. He was out. They went into, I'm pretty sure they went into the third quarter down like either 17-3 or 24-3 at one point. And my brother was like, "Oh, this game's over. It's done. It is what it is. Like it's not worth watching." But wouldn't you know, the Buccaneers found a way to come back. They didn't win, which was, in my opinion, kind of sad. Although I am happy for Sean McVay and I'm happy for Matt Stafford. I don't like Aaron Donald personally. I love Aaron Donald as a football player, but twice this year he has tried to choke an opponent, and he's been fined for it twice. And he has had history of having like relatively aggressive behavior on the field. And I get it. When you're Aaron Donald, you're as good as he is as a football player. That's going to happen. But like the difference between him and Vontaze Burfict was that Vontaze Burfict was not good enough at football to justify some of his actions on the field. And Aaron Donald doesn't have the ability to pick up enough speed. If Aaron Donald was a linebacker, I think we're talking about him as potentially one of the dirtier players in the NFL. Maybe that's just like a way for me to be frustrated with the fact that they won. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making excuses for this team because I kind of wanted the Buccaneers to win. I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't know. I wanted Tom Brady to be able to win one more, him and Gronk, and then they both retire. And now they're both going to retire and not win another and just sit on my fantasy team for Dynasty and make me wonder why I traded a second-round pick for him. Anyways, so you can't really count Tom Brady out. I don't know how, but you just can't. Matt Stafford did play one of the better games of his career. He was 28 for 38, 366 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had the Rams with a 27-3 lead. Yeah, 27-3 lead in the third quarter, which is bananas considering the Rams ended up only winning by 3 thanks to a last-second field goal. Now, the Bucs managed to put up 24 points in about 18 minutes of play, and Tom Brady just about did it again. He began... I like this in the script here. It says he began his witchcraft. It wasn't Tom Brady's witchcraft, guys. This is Giselle's. He can't commit witchcraft on the field. Giselle was doing it off the field.
It would be too obvious he'd get caught.
It'd be too exactly. And I don't think the NFL could suspend him for just being goofy. But Giselle, they can't do anything about that, bro. Anyways, so it was in the third quarter. They forced a Cooper Kupp fumble, and it was Cooper Kupp's first fumble all year with 3 minutes remaining in the third. And the Bucs managed to string together 7-play, 30-yard drive, along with Leonard Fournette getting that touchdown in the end zone. when he ran it in, and I was rooting for Lenny to score a receiving touchdown. I had a buddy who had a parlay on the game. I know we don't talk about betting here on this podcast much, but I had a buddy who had a parlay on the game, and all he needed was one more Leonard Fournette touchdown, receiving, not rushing, and he didn't get it, so he lost out on like $2K. He only bet like $100, but whatever. Anyways, so they forced the stop. Tampa Bay gets the ball back. Tom Brady proceeds to be strip sacked by Von Miller, and this was my favorite sequence of the game. Tom Brady gets strip sacked, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's over. That's it. It's done." And then Matt Stafford fumbles a high snap that he wasn't expecting, goes right over his head. And my man's was sprinting as fast as I've ever seen Matt Stafford run. When I look at Matt Stafford's face, yeah, obviously he's an NFL athlete. He's got to be relatively in shape. But when you just look at his face, you see like a chubby Dutch kid, or like a chubby English kid. Like, that's what I see. You know, he's got like the rosy red cheeks. His cheeks are kind of puffy. Like, he looks like he came out of like 1800s England and just like, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" And then it was just like a fat kid that they were like, "Go away. Like, you already had so much. You need to leave." Anyways, so Matt Stafford fumbles the ball. A couple drives later, the Rams miss a field goal. And then once again, Tom Brady comes back. They get a touchdown, 55-yard touchdown on bad coverage by Jalen Ramsey to Mike Evans. And I remember watching Jalen Ramsey, and I was just like, oh, Jalen Ramsey doesn't get burned like this. This is divine intervention. There's something going on here. Tom Brady's about to win. So the Rams get the ball back. They're still up 27-20. There's no way. The game's over. The game is over. But then Cam Akers, beloved Cam Akers, the guy that we have complimented so much for his recovery from his torn Achilles, who also honestly looks just as explosive as he did before that injury. Cam Akers fumbles the football, gives the ball back to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay comes back. Leonard Fournette gets another touchdown, 27-27. He left the Rams with 42 seconds left on the clock and one timeout, but somehow Los Angeles was able to go down 63 yards in 5 plays. Not somehow. Cooper Kupp was how, mind you. Cooper Kupp, when they did a blitz, they did a corner blitz and everything. They left one person on Cooper Kupp, and my man's got open for like 50-yard catch. Then the Rams kicker, I can't remember his name, was Matt Gay, right?
Yeah,
he was
Matt
the guy,
Gay.
I think that the Bucks, because the Bucks cut him. Yeah, the Bucks cut him 2 years ago. So Matt Gay comes in and says, "Nope, I'm out, bro. You guys are out. I'm in." So that was it. It was beautiful. Honestly, it was great to see. I gave you guys kind of like a weird summarization of the game. I was just getting too I don't know how to explain it. Off script, on script, off script, on script. But with that said, I really did love this game. This might have been the second best game of the week, in my opinion.
When the game was 27-3, and then Tom Brady somehow came around and tied it 27-27, there were 4 fumbles from the Rams in this game, and there was a field goal kick that was short. That was like 40 something.
Yeah, it was a 47-yard field goal, and I remember I thought the kick went through the uprights.
I did too.
And when the ref said no, it's not any good, I was just like, the NFL's rigged. That's it. Like it's toast. The NFL's done. Officiating is corrupt more than I thought. I knew it. And then I watched the replay, and that ball just falls slightly short.
Yeah, the number of people who, after this game, were making like jokes and skits about like the NFL being scripted, and they were like, the NFL had to call an audible because they were like, wait, if we let Brady win this, like people are already being like, it's scripted, so they had to call.
They're gonna know.
Yeah, and they're like, Rams had to go off script. God, there's just so much that was like, the NFL has to be scripted, right? Like there's, or at least tampered
honestly.
with. There's no way
No,
the Rams
it's-
fumble 4 times and have a randomly short kick like that. That's 5 unnecessary turnovers.
And 2 turnovers by Cam Akers, a guy who's
Right.
relatively secure with the football. So I don't know. It was a crazy game. Like I said, it was my second favorite game of the weekend. But Rob, why don't you get us started with no doubt the best game of the weekend?
All right, so we're going to talk about Bills at Chiefs. The Chiefs beat the Bills in Arrowhead 42-36. I am not even going to bother wasting your time by talking about the first 58 minutes of this game because they didn't matter. The only thing that mattered about this game was once that 2-minute warning was called in the fourth quarter, because that's when the game started. By the way, Gabriel Davis, 4 receiving touchdowns in a single playoff game.
Bananas. I haven't used that word in a while. I'm trying to use it in the proper context these days, and this is it. Bananas.
This is bananas.
He had an amazing performance.
And by the way, this isn't like, he did this against like the Detroit Lions. Oh, he beat like the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the playoffs. Defenses in the playoffs are real defenses. They're big boy defenses, and they're playing their best. They have all of their tape studied. Like these are real teams. If fantasy football were still a thing in the playoffs, by the way, Gabriel Davis would have gotten 52.1 points in PPR leagues in a playoff game. That is disgusting. And by the way, you still lost. I just like, I wonder what that guy did when he went home. He's just like, yeah, I just feel like I didn't do enough. You know, I just feel
right. Like no, he probably went home and he was just like, man, I should request a trade.
Yeah, but I honestly, like, this wasn't really a matter of like the Bills not playing well. I mean, I think the Bills did everything they could. It's just Mahomes is Mahomes. And I know that he was in a big slump early in the year and for the middle of the season. And we were starting to talk about how like he wasn't good and he was doing like turnovers.
Well, he was
stuff.
playing like college Mahomes.
Right.
You know, he was just very undisciplined. But like,
it's just when they get to the playoffs, I don't know if it's just like Andy Reid's like, hey guys, all right, we're gonna start trying now. Because it honestly feels like the Chiefs just aren't trying in the regular season, and then they show up, and all of a sudden they're just like, oh yeah, we're the same team we always used to be. It's disgusting.
No, it doesn't. And so like if y'all watched the early part of the game, part of the reason why the Chiefs were able to be as competitive as they were was because Patrick Mahomes was running more in that game than I've seen him do in a long time. Like in a long time. And he looked good. You know, I'm not going to say that he looked like Michael Vick or anything, but he was like a sturdy Lamar Jackson. Oh, you wrote that. Yeah, he was like a sturdy Lamar Jackson. Yeah. You know, and
with a cannon on his back.
Exactly. Yeah, seriously. And I mean, the guy, he just played awesome. And I don't even know if he necessarily played better than Josh Allen. I think they played comparatively well. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like you said, nothing really happened in the first 58 minutes of the game. So it's not like it actually, when it came to a lot of those different things. But seeing him and Josh Allen just put both of their teams on their backs brings like a bit of a tragedy that we're going to talk about in a little bit too in NFL therapy.
Yeah.
But anyways, I didn't mean to take you off or anything like that.
It's good. Ahead. You actually reminded me of something, though. There was one singular play that I cared about in that first 58 minutes. The Chiefs had gotten a 2-score lead, and it looked like they were starting to pull away in typical Chief fashion. And Josh Allen's just like, yeah, I'm not really feeling that. And then he hits Gabriel Davis for a 75-yard touchdown on the next drive. Yeah. And it was just like an epic clapback of playoff proportions. And he was like, hey, we're not the same Buffalo Bills. Like, don't think you're just walking out of this one without having to throw up a fight. So that was kind of wild. But yeah, so both of these offenses looked completely unstoppable by the end of this game. And to put reference of what we are talking about, after that 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter, 31 points were scored in this game. There were 3 touchdowns that caused lead changes. There was a game-tying field goal and then an overtime touchdown to win the game. There was no defense played after 58 minutes.
Can we talk about how the game-tying field goal happened with 13 seconds left on the clock? 13 seconds, and the Chiefs went something like 40 yards down the field in that span of time to be able to kick a comfortable 40-yard kick for Harrison Butker. Like, it's crazy to me. It was crazy. And I don't know if any of you or Rob, if you've seen this yet, but like Travis Kelce, some of his like mic'd up stuff,
improv,
and seeing some of the Tyreek Hill, it was improv, bro. They were just going out there and playing backyard football, and that was so cool to see. It was like when you got your buddy who's blocking the other team from seeing you, and you're drawing on his back. You're like, all right, you run a sluggo, you run an out, you run a shallow in, and we're just gonna wing it. We're just gonna have fun, and it made for some of the best football that I have seen in a long time.
Can you imagine like how mad you would be as a defensive back if you're like, oh, I saw this play in the tape. I know what Travis Kelce's route is. I got this, boys. I'm going to win the game for us. And then Travis Kelce's like, yeah, Pat, I'm just going to not do the route. I'm just going to do whatever I want this play. Probably go down the middle and you just throw it to me, all right? I would be so tilted. I would be so angry as a defensive back.
Dude,
I'm like, I studied my tape and you just improv.
100%. And I'm not, I think that's a testament not just to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, because both of those guys have like unparalleled chemistry, but also to Andy Reid. We have to give credit to Andy Reid because that is a guy who he went to, and I mentioned this later as well, but he went to the NFC Championship game 5 times with the Eagles, and they only got through to the Super Bowl once in his tenure there, and they lost to the Patriots. But like I guess, I don't know if he was always this way, and I'm sure my buddy Brandon, after he listens to this, will correct me if I'm saying something wrong here, but I think he's more lax with his players than he even was then. And he's always been known for being a player's coach, for being a loving, caring coach who's just like, I'm here for y'all. We're going to make this work together as a team. But I think he's even more cool with it now. And this is reaping what you sow. This is allowing your players to play ball, and they just look different. You know what I mean? Like they look different when they can just have a good time. So like shout out to Andy Reid for probably being, in my opinion, the coach of the playoffs so far and helping that team look, like you say, it's like Thanos snap. All of a sudden, everybody else was sucky, and then they were good. I know that's not how the Thanos snap works, but we're going to make it work like that in context of that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely crazy that a coach would have so much faith in his players that he would let his quarterback and his tight end just call a different route on the play, like just whenever they want, and give them that power. That's a lot of trust. But when you have talent like that, when you have Mahomes and Kelce, I mean, maybe that's what you should do as a coach. You should not micromanage. Yeah. I do 100%. Have in front of us what is called a win probability chart. For those of you who don't know, a win probability chart is basically it's a scale where it goes from like 50-50 to 100% that one team wins to 100% that the other team wins. And it shows you at various points in the games, based on the situation they're in, what are the chances that team is going to be winning. Now, this game was mostly like 50-50. It was like around the 50% mark. Either team could win until that 2-minute warning. And I recommend you Google this, Buffalo Bills and Chiefs playoff game probability chart. It goes to about 95% Chiefs win. And then it swings to about 95% Bills will win. Then it swings to about 98% Chiefs will win. Then it swings to about 96% that the Bills will win. Now, I don't know how much you guys like statistics, but that is a lot of outliers. That's like 5 or 6 extreme outliers to happen in like a 2-minute period. This thing is just swinging wildly from, oh yeah, Buffalo 100% wins this to, yeah, the Chiefs 100% win this here. And it just happens 4 or 5 times in a row. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
It really gives credit to that whole entire, that saying, any given Sunday, not the movie. Well, the movie too, but awesome. Any given Sunday, like anything can happen. And like outliers, like statistics are great, but isn't that what we said in the beginning of the playoffs, Rob? I think you said it. It's time to throw out the statistics because all that matters is this one game.
Yep.
So I don't know. I loved the game. I know you got to see the whole thing. I didn't get to see the whole thing, but I saw most of what mattered. And it was just so fun. And plus, weren't the Bills like the number 1 defense in the regular season or something like that?
That's the thing that kind of blows my mind the most. It's that the Bills couldn't do a single thing to stop the Chiefs, and they were the number 1 defense. And I think that kind of shows where the NFL is right now, and we're going to talk about this a lot. Don't worry, guys. We're going to have an entire section where we complain about overtime rules, so just sit tuned, stay tuned and sit tight for that one. But we're in a place right now where if you're a like optimized offense with powerhouse talent, you're not going to be stopped. And when the number 1 defense can't do anything to stop, like literally cannot stop a single thing on the offensive side of the ball, that shows you where the NFL is headed. So keep an eye out for that one, because that's not going to go away. That's going to be a thing that we see throughout the NFL. Defense is great, but if you don't have an offense that can throw hands, I mean, you don't think you're winning a Super Bowl. So up next, well, let me put it this way. Last week, we had to create a brand new segment called What in Tarnation? Because we had a game that was so ridiculous that we felt that it didn't belong in Weekend Recap. This week, here we go again. We have yet another game that was so just dumb and ridiculous that we decided we're actually going to bring What in Tarnation back. So here we go. Cue the soundbite.
What in tarnation?
Now we have the wonderful duty of trying to explain to you what in tarnation happened in the 49ers-Packers game. The 49ers defeated the Packers in Lambeau 13-10. I'm starting to notice a trend here, by the way. All of our What in Tarnation games seem to involve the 49ers. So we'll see if that ends up being the case, and we have to bring this segment back next week. We'll just have Weekend Recap be one game, and then What in Tarnation.
Hey, if it works, right? If it makes sense,
works,
then that's how we got to do it.
This game, wild from start to finish, and in typical Lambeau fashion, we have a 0-degree wind chill, snow everywhere, and an icy field just completely wreaking havoc. So, Zach, tell us about at least the first half of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So early on, I'm not gonna lie, guys, Jimmy G actually looked pretty good. You know, his receivers were letting him down, but Jimmy Garoppolo was not looking like the reason as to why it is that the Packers were ahead. You know, the Packers took the lead, and it was just looking like it was going to be a slugfest, but not a slugfest like a boxing match. It looked like it was going to be like two snails racing each other, and you were like, when is this going to end?
That's such a good metaphor.
But I mean, it's true. That's how it felt, man. Like, you know, Kittle was dropping balls, and then he did make a pretty elite catch later on in the game. It was a spectacular catch. But like, it was one of those things where I couldn't tell if Jimmy Garoppolo is just not allowed to be good. Like Kyle Shanahan's just like, Jimmy, when you're good, we're gonna suck. So you just need to be bad for us to win games. Like, it reminds me of, I think it was last year. No, it was either last year. No, it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Jimmy Garoppolo played a playoff game and threw like 7 or 10 passes or something. And it was like one of the lowest totals in modern NFL era since the Super Bowl. And it was just like, oh, well, I guess Jimmy Garoppolo is the Achilles heel of this team. But he really wasn't for the first half, you know? And the second half, well, I'll let you talk about the second half, Rob. You have more of a...
So in the second half, what I like to call him Hospital Pass Jimmy came out. I don't know if he was just mad at his wide receivers for what happened in the first half and all those really bad drops, but all of a sudden, his signature mediocre football came out. He was throwing dangerous screen after dangerous screen. The announcer said, I think 3 or 4 passes. They were like, yeah, realistically speaking, that probably should have been an interception if the Packer player played it right and went aggressive on the ball. I'm sure the weather conditions certainly didn't help, but Hospital Pass Jimmy was in full force, just trying to get his receivers killed. Eli Mitchell on one play got absolutely lit up and just slowly got off the ground. And by the way, in 0 degrees, it really just sucks getting hit like that on a screen.
Dude, I played high school ball, right? Like one year and then one summer because I was academically ineligible pretty much the rest of the time. But but I played ball 1 year, man, my sophomore year, and it never even got that cold. It got as cold as like 36 one time in like a rainy day, and it's even play, guys. I am not athletic. And I have never been athletic. It has never been a forte for me. I was always like, I could make jokes. I could get the guys on the sideline to laugh. But like, even then I took myself too seriously. So I couldn't actually do that. I was kind of a loser. But anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that getting hit in the cold feels like, how do I explain it? It's like the difference between being hit with like a wiffle bat and then being hit with like a foam bat. And I know when you hear foam, you think like, oh, that's like a light bat, but like, no, there's still metal under the foam. Like, it still hurts to get hit with a foam bat. Like, and I wouldn't want to be hit over and over again with a foam bat. Mm-hmm. A wiffle bat, all right, that's annoying, but a foam bat, that would suck. And like, that's what it feels like to get hit in the cold. You feel like somebody takes a foam bat to a portion of your body for just a second, but it sucks. It hurts, especially if you get hit in the head. Anyways, go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
So in this game, there was one offensive touchdown, and it was the first drive of the game. The next 55 minutes of the game, there was not a single offensive touchdown scored. And this is Packers 49ers. Like, you really don't expect that. It must have been just the horrific weather and the defenses playing, forcing conservative play. It's just, ugh. Like, the offenses couldn't do anything. Receivers were having trouble breaking out of their routes because they couldn't get their cuts with all the ice and whatnot. It was just a bad time. The Packers' second drive, there was a fumble by Mercedes Lewis. Just completely bad fumble, bad timing, bad break. Yeah.
He's so bad. And the dude's like 38 years old. Why are you trusting him at the tight end position anyways? Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but this guy was never, Antonio Gonzalez. You know what I mean? He was never that level talent. He just somehow lasted in the league.
Just call Tony Gonzalez Antonio.
Yeah. I don't know what I was going because there was an Antonio Gonzalez who was a first-round pick by the Colts, but I always flip their names.
Well, if there's one thing that can be said about the Packers, it's that we know that their special teams was their Achilles heel pretty much all season. Like, they had their special teams coordinator fired, and I would be willing to bet that after this game, they're going to have to fire a second special teams coordinator. This was a big problem. They had a field goal blocked at the end of the first half, which I will talk a little bit. I don't even think it should have come down to that, but they had a field goal blocked. In the second half, they had a punt blocked for a touchdown, the only 49ers touchdown of the game, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the game, for the 49ers game-winning field goal, the Packers only bothered to put 10 people on the field. Because why not just let them win at this point? It blows my mind how their special teams can be that dysfunctional when both their offense and defense were so good throughout the entire year. I don't understand how their special teams is so bad.
It's a shame. It's honestly a shame because they were in a way let down by their offense. Aaron Rodgers was getting hit a lot, or at least he was getting pressured a lot. You know what I mean? So, like, he didn't have a ton of time, but truly what ruined their opportunity to continue forward were the special teams. And also, I don't know if you know this, their offensive coordinator was just promoted, right? He's going to be Denver's head coach. And so the Packers going into next year are going to be without their offensive coordinator, likely without Devontae Adams, and almost assuredly without Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. And the Packers are looking like they're going to be a bad team. This was really their last chance. It was their last chance.
Very unfortunate. And don't worry, we're going to talk more about coaching a little bit later in the podcast. Yeah. But they were in a lot of trouble, and they really needed this win. One last thing I did want to talk about before we moved on was the Aaron Jones huge catch on the wheel route. I was screeching at my TV when I saw it. He's in a foot race, and for whatever reason, instead of sticking on the sidelines and trying to either win the foot race, probably losing, and getting pushed out of bounds, he runs inwards towards the defender and then gets taken down. I guess he was thinking all or nothing, try to knock the guy down, try to win it, but because of that, the Packers had to use their last timeout. And I literally said, this is terrible because if they get sacked, they lose their only timeout. Like, they can't go for a touchdown anymore. And what happens? No way
to stop the clock.
The very next play, Bosa, strip sack. They have to spike the ball, 3 seconds left. They're going to kick a field goal and then go into halftime. And of course, the field goal then gets blocked. So just very, very frustrating. Should have never come to that. That's an offensive failure that caused the special teams play to even happen because I want to see Rodgers throwing to Devontae in the end zone every single time. I can't do that when I don't have a timeout.
No.
So
yeah, absolutely not.
Very frustrating. I will say, though, this was a little bit of a Pyrrhic victory. For those of you that don't know, Pyrrhic victory basically just means like you won, but at what cost?
At what cost?
Right.
Yeah.
And the 49ers, by the end of this game, their three best players, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Trent Williams, were all limping at the end of the game, and Williams was seen on crutches. So hopefully we'll have some updates in the next couple of days about what's happening with those three. But with the 49ers being 6-0 against the Rams, they kind of need those guys.
I mean, they do for sure. And I was reading the statistic that in years where a team beat a team twice and saw them in the playoffs, they've won 14 out of 21 matchups, so 66% of the time. So as long as the 49ers get them back, and honestly, the biggest concern is Trent Williams because he has an ankle sprain, and it might be a high ankle sprain. So if he's not able to play this week, there's going to be concern that he may not even be able to play in the Super Bowl. And my guess is that if he gets to the Super Bowl, like if they get to the Super Bowl, Trent Williams will play. He's a tough dude. He's a guy who gets hurt a lot, but is a tough player, and I respect him to no end. He's one of my favorites of all time. But I don't think we're going to see Trent this week if it's a high ankle sprain, which is really bad for
terrible because he's probably the best player in the NFL right now on offense.
Yeah.
I don't know if 100%. You saw the play where they used him as a fullback and he just
did I see the play?
Deleted number 52 Gary for the Packers. He just deleted him from the play.
Rashawn Gary. And Rashawn Gary was a first-round pick out of Michigan. He was the number 2 overall recruit in the nation.
Good. He had a good game. He still got wrecked.
He broke out this year. Zadarius Smith missed most of the year, and so he broke out in Zadarius Smith's absence. They had 3 viable outside linebackers with Zadarius Smith, Rashawn Gary, and then as well as Preston Smith. And Trent Williams just erased him. He kicked him out of the matrix. That's what happened. There was a glitch in the matrix.
And the saddest part is that the Packers don't even really have an excuse for losing this game. They got all of their pieces back except for Bakhtiari, I think. This was the strongest that they have been at any point in the season, and they just lost.
Yeah.
Special team strikes again, I guess.
With that said, let's go to awards, right?
Let's do it.
Awards for the worthy.
Wow. For this week's awards, we will be doing just the fun awards. I mean, Earth, Wind, and Fire doesn't really make much sense when we only have 4 teams because it's like, who was the best running back out of 4 teams? It's kind of lame, right? So we're going to be doing awards, but we do have some good news. We have a very spicy new podcast record happening today. We actually are going to be breaking the record for the longest named award in our podcast history. So brace yourself. Here we go. Up first, we have For the love of God, will someone please provide PR training or something to the Mahomes family? Because at this point, I honestly can't even fathom doing that many cringe, rude, and inappropriate things, yet expecting absolutely no consequences for my actions because of someone that I'm related to. Award. And this award will go to the Kansas City Chiefs for clearly not providing enough PR training to the Mahomes family, as this week after the Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills in overtime, Patrick's wife Brittany popped a bottle of champagne from one of the booths and proceeded to spray it onto the peasants down below because those dirty poors would just absolutely love to be covered in champagne in 20-degree weather. And by the way, she would later tweet, quote, "I just wish I could do what I want without getting attacked every week," end quote. That right there sounds like a complete lack of understanding of the word accountability. I don't really think this is a hard one, guys. Maybe in 20-degree weather, don't pour a bunch of champagne on people who haven't consented to having a bunch of champagne poured on them. I mean, you have people who are wearing their NFL jerseys. I don't know about you guys. I almost never wash my NFL jerseys. I don't wash my NFL jerseys. And if someone poured a large amount of alcohol on my NFL jersey, I would be really upset. The thing that bothers me here is that if literally anyone else did this, they would be called a rude drunk and they would be escorted out of the stadium by security. But because it's Patrick's wife, it's, we just have to let this happen. It's
not
insane.
even his wife yet.
I know.
Still just his fiance. It's crazy.
What is it?
I
18
have
years, 18 years, mess around and they got you for 18 years? Is that
18
what it
years.
is?
Yeah. I don't think those are exactly the words, but I think it's all the
I had
words
to
are right except for
paraphrase,
messing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not exactly
So
a podcast friendly song.
no, it's not, but I love it. It's a great song.
I just want
for-
to yeah, that was dumb. I'm sorry. Probably shouldn't have done that. My bad. And move on. Like, that's all I want.
nothing.
I'm going to end my rant here, though, if you have anything you want to say about it.
No, I actually do. So I agree with everything you said. So my aforementioned buddy Brandon, who I was talking about earlier, he's the avid Eagles fan. I'm sure we'll have him on here if he wants to be for Eagles therapy when that comes up eventually. He came to me last night with a theory, a great theory. You know how people talk about Michael Jordan, and how like Michael Jordan would come up with like these fake stories to like stay motivated somehow. So like there were times where Michael Jordan was just like, yeah, man, like so-and-so Karl Malone said this to me and all it did was make me mad. So I knew I had to beat his butt. I knew I had to be better than him. And Karl Malone was just like, bro, I never said anything to you. Like we're friends. Like, what are you talking about? And Michael Jordan was like, nah, he didn't say that, but I needed to get motivated somehow. You know what I mean? So he came to me and he was just like, what if Patrick Mahomes intentionally has his fiance and his brother act like jerks so that way people want Patrick to lose, which gives him an edge without people hating Patrick Mahomes. And I was just like, whoa.
That's genius.
Break this down for
That
me
is
because that
200
is
IQ.
genius. I was like, that's incredible. I was like, Brandon, that's one of the smartest things I've ever heard. He was like, listen, he was just like, why would Patrick marry this childish person? Like, why would he want to be with somebody like that? He's obviously a smart guy. He seems like or at least he seems like a smart guy. All of his interviews and stuff, and he's eloquently spoken, even though he sounds like Kermit the Frog. He didn't say that. I said that. But, he was talking about how, like, athletes manufacture fake haters to motivate themselves and how it would actually be genius because people would never really hate Patrick Mahomes. They would just hate watching Patrick Mahomes because when he wins, his brother and his, soon-to-be wife act like total fools. Like, imagine if Tom Brady, every time he won a Super Bowl, was just like, man, it sucks that we'll see that jerk win, the Super Bowl because of his brother, but at least Tom is kind of cool. That's what Patrick Mahomes is doing. He's being the cool guy with the jerk brother and the jerk fiance. That way, when he retires, divorces them, and disowns his brother, we'll be able to be like, yeah, man, all his successes were totally valid. Anyways, conspiracy theory tin hat on. I think that's a beautiful theory. And Brandon, kudos to you. Thank you.
I actually
much.
think that wins the Conspiracy Theorist Award. So congratulations to Brandon on winning this week's Conspiracy Theorist Award.
Brandon Nimmerwitz. Good for you, buddy.
Take the next one, Zach.
Yeah, I got you. All right, so the next one is the Here Comes the Boom Award. And this goes to Stephon Diggs they don't broadcast this because they don't want people to copycat it, right? But if you see on Twitter, Stephon Diggs levels another fan, a Kansas City fan, during one of the Bills' drives. And it was easily the most fun hit of the weekend and one of the hardest. Like, he showed no regard for that person. He didn't care. And I loved every single second of it. And thank goodness it was a fan because he won't get fined or a flag.
If that was a player, that's a penalty.
100%.
Up next, we have the Unstoppable Force meets the Immovable Object Award, and this goes to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes for the most insane quarterback duel I've ever seen in a playoff game. The final 5 or so drives were just pure quarterback perfection. I mean, Mahomes is slicing and dicing, serving up defenders left and right. At one point in time, Josh Allen was actually sprinting in the wrong direction and zigzagging back and forth to try to lose the defensive lineman and then just turning around and just nailing a wide receiver with the ball. It was gross. So congratulations to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes for such a just delightful NFL game watching experience.
Next up, we have the I'm pretty sure special teams are going to cost the Packers the playoffs award. And that goes to the Packers special teams for costing the Packers the playoffs.
Well said, Zach. Well said. We have the No Fear Son Award, well played, Sergi, to Bengals kicker Evan McPherson for being 8 for 8 on kicks in the postseason, 4 for 4 versus the Titans, and being the person who won that game for the Bengals. And right before running out for the game-winning kick, looking at his team and casually saying, Looks like we're going to the AFC Championship.
And then next up, we have the, you got to be quicker than that, award. And that goes to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers for almost coming back from a 27-3 late third quarter deficit to tie the game at 27-27. But right as they had victory in their grasp, they ultimately forgot to send somebody to cover the best wide receiver in football this past season, Cooper Kupp. And the Rams kicked a game-winning field goal.
Yep, they went off script, and Tom Brady lost. Unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have the Revenge is a Dish Best Served Cold. And this award goes to Ram kicker Matt Gay for coming to Tampa 2 years after they cut him and icing them out of the playoffs.
And then our last award for this week is going to be the You Think That's Going to Cut It award. And that goes to Gabriel Davis for having 4 receiving touchdowns, an absurd amount of yardage. What was it, like 200 or something, or like 180?
It was a lot.
Whatever it was.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. And somehow the Bills still lost. But at least we're going into one of my favorite parts that we have brought back for the sections of this podcast. The next segment is NFL therapy. And though I'm sorry, Gabe Davis, we're not going to be doing it with you. That'd be kind of cool if he decided to come on this podcast, and just be like, hey, yeah, I'm here. He doesn't sound like that, but, whatever. That would be great. But Rob, go ahead. Get us ready for NFL therapy, my friend.
All right, let's do it.
NFL therapy.
Is this some radical new therapy?
This week for NFL therapy, unfortunately, we were not able to get our guests on. We're going to bring that back next week. So for this week, it's us in therapy. It's going to be Zach and I, because yet again, we see another victim to the flip of a coin. Now, I want to start us off by giving us some context on what we are talking about with the overtime rules. So these overtime rules were implemented in 2010 for the playoffs and 2012 for the regular season. Under the current overtime rules, there have been 163 overtime games. Now, 53% of these games, roughly, the team who won the coin toss won the game. 41% of the time, the team who won the coin toss lost the game, with obviously the remaining 6% being a tie. So we are looking at an almost 12% gap between your chance of winning and losing if you don't get that coin toss. Even more interesting, in the playoffs, teams are 10-1 with the coin toss. And 7 of those 11 games were decided on the first possession without any opportunity for the opposing offense to retaliate.
Massive disparity.
And by the way, that one game should have never happened. Because that one game was the Saints-Rams game, where we had the most ridiculous missed pass interference call in NFL history that actually prompted a rule change. It was so just egregiously bad. So really, we're talking effectively 10 for 10, realistically speaking. Obviously, we can't do that. We can't just cheat with statistics. I would love to, but we can't. But why is it that, regular season's bad, but why is it that playoffs are so much worse? We're talking about better offenses in the playoffs who are going to be more likely to score a touchdown on the first drive. And not only that, we're talking about the fifth quarter in the 19th, the 20th game of the season. We're talking people have played 100 quarters of ruthless football in 2 or 3 months, and you're expecting these guys to still be able to play good defense against top-tier offenses in the fifth quarter of a game? That's just not how it works. I think we're going to continue to see this. I think that the regular season has already kind of exposed that the current overtime rules are a problem. I think as more playoff games go and as that sample size increases, I think we're going to see it even worse. I think that you're going to have a much higher chance of winning in the playoffs because you don't have the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Lions or some of these inept offenses. You're not going to see them in the playoffs. There's a good chance that the team who gets that ball first, who wins the coin toss, is going to win. And unfortunately, we saw that in the Chiefs game. And I don't know how you feel about it, Zach. I assume you're probably in the same boat. Whoever won that coin toss was advancing to the AFC Championship. That was a coin toss deciding the winner.
Yeah, it's especially in that game. Like, if it was a different game, it could have gone either way. So, like, if it was like the Bengals Titans, I feel like, okay, the coin toss is still a heavy advantage. Obviously, with the statistics showing that it's 90% in one direction, and the other one is kind of like a ghost / asterisk next to it. But yeah, no, I was pretty much with you on that.
Yeah, and I think it's sad, and I think it's a disservice to the game, honestly. I understand the theory of, well, if you're at overtime, you should have won the game already. Next score wins, but there has to be a better way to do it. And I could even think of just a couple of better ways off the top of my head. First off, I mean, you could just give each team 5 minutes. Just give them 5 minutes. Have one drive. After that, if it's in the regular season, it's a tie, who cares? Give them a tie. But there's so many variations you could do. You could do, if it's the tiebreaker for the tie is how much time did you have left when you scored or when you didn't score, right? You could even do what yard line were you on? Oh, you got to like first and goal in the 8 and they only got to like the 25, you would win the game. There's so many different variations that you could do that would make it fair. Andy Reid himself, who was just the benefactor of this, he himself was like, yeah, that's probably not fair. I think both teams should really have a chance. It's a serious problem, and it doesn't feel good as a fan to watch a coin toss and then to watch the team that receives the ball first win the game, and that's it. Because when that coin toss went off, I knew the Chiefs won. And it felt really bad from a fan perspective because we had the most amazing 2 minutes of football followed by a real travesty, in my opinion. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of conversations about this, not just this week, but for a very long time. I have never been a fan of just calling it on a coin toss. And that's partially because I didn't grow up on college football, but when I started watching pro football, I started watching college football. I didn't really start watching football until I was in like 10th grade, 9th grade, maybe 8th grade. But, I started watching college football almost as diligently as I did pro football because, I really loved the University of Miami. I never liked Maryland. I'm not a Terps fan, but I loved the Hurricanes in high school. And eventually I became like a Michigan and UConn fan. Anyways, none of that matters to right now. But my point is that in college football, at least pre-2021, there were rules about how to play. And I think that the NFL should mimic those rules because I think that it's the perfect way to run overtime. And I'm not saying that they should implement this because it's more fair, because they did have 60 minutes to win the game. And that is the truth. Both teams had 60 minutes to win the game. But as a service to fans, like you just said, it was disappointing not to see the Bills get an opportunity on their offense to return the favor and score a touchdown. So the way that the college football overtime rules used to go, it was each team would get the football on the 30-yard line, the 25-yard line. They would have 2 opportunities for a first down or 1 opportunity for a first down, depending on where it was lined up. And I believe it was the 25 and 1 opportunity, but I could be wrong about that. But anyways, in the NFL, I would suggest that they put the ball at the 30-yard line, their opponent's 30-yard line. So it's almost like half-court basketball, but with football. Put it at the 30-yard line. Make that offense try and score. If that offense scores a touchdown, the next team, they get an opportunity, and they have to match the touchdown. If they don't match the touchdown, they lose. But it gives the opportunity for fans to say both teams had the opportunity to win the game and gave us a heck of a football game. Now, college football has been trying to tinker and change the rules because there have been some pretty excessive overtimes. There was one game, it was a Michigan game against Illinois. It went to 6 overtimes. Now, I don't think professional football players would be a fan of that. But at the end of the day, there's ways to kind of curb it. Back in 2018, LSU and Texas Tech went to 7 overtimes. Yeah, 7 overtimes, which is excessive as well. So if you can find a way to incorporate most of what college football allows, and then after quarter 2, start saying, hey, okay, this is second overtime, starting at second overtime, no more extra points. You have to go for 2. That way, if a team converts for 2, they get it. And if they don't convert for 2, it ends the game faster because not every team's going to be able to convert for 2 every single time. I think it provides a better product. Maybe don't do this in the regular season. Maybe give each of the teams one opportunity for an extra overtime in the regular season and say if neither of them score, it's over. But in the playoffs, at least, man, like this would drive viewership crazy. And people would talk about these games. And NFL viewership is up higher than it's been in 5 years. Those are the statistics that show right now that the playoffs are more popular than they've been since 2016. And that is huge. And I think if the NFL corrects this overtime issue, which, once again, this is not in fairness of a team because that team had a chance to win. And Josh Allen himself said, you know what? We shouldn't have had a coin toss to determine what was going to happen to us. We should have won the game in the first 60 minutes. Josh Allen, the loser team, he wasn't complaining about, the NFL needs to change the rules. He was saying, we lost because we didn't play effective football for the first 60 minutes. We shouldn't have to rely on a field or on a coin flip. The same way that no team should have to rely on one penalty changing the outcome of a game. Anyways, I think that would be great if the NFL adopted a pseudo college version of their overtime, gave them the opportunity, each offense the opportunity to score, even if it's just once initially, because I would love to see the offense and the defense play. Because it's not just, I don't want to just see one offense and one defense. I want to see the full team play. Because an NFL team, at least for the first 60 minutes, is also not going to have one team run for 60 minutes and then the other team doesn't get a chance to play. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not impossible, but it's got to be
60-minute drive.
Yeah, seriously. No, I mean,
there were like 15 sacks and like 6 automatic first down penalties. It's possible. But.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. It's possible, but it's highly unlikely. So I would love to see the overtime change. I think it would be great for fans. I even think that it would be good for player morale too. Because then players can't be like, whoa, man, we lucked out. They didn't get the coin toss. Because like the Chiefs fans celebrated when they won the coin toss because that's when they knew like the game is probably ours. But that's how I feel.
Feels bad, but I mean, we all know how it is. Yeah. Anyway, up next, we have a less therapeutic, less sad, less ranty segment that you all know and love. We're going to get straight to the future. Here we go.
The future is now.
The future is now.
Welcome to The Future Is Now, where we look into our magical podcast crystal ball and tell you who will win next week during the AFC and NFC championship games. But wait, there's more. Because over this past week, we actually hired a contractor to upgrade our magical ball. And with that, we can now tell you, we can predict for you, which coaches will be on certain teams who have already been hired. It's a pretty good magic ball, right? It's pretty cool. It's yeah, I guess Ian Rappaport already told us about all of these, so we're a little bit later in the game, but we know them.
That's okay.
We know the future. We know who we're going to be head coaches for these teams next year. Sean Payton will not be one of them.
Yeah.
Sean Payton resigned from the Saints.
I'm happy about it. Everybody loves Sean Payton. I was about to use something I absolutely cannot say on this podcast. But everybody really, they stroke his ego. That's what I'll say. They stroke Sean Payton's ego.
Okay, yeah.
Vivaciously. You know what I mean? They really, they love him. I cannot stand that guy. I have not been able to stand that guy for quite some time. After they won the Super Bowl, I was like, all right, so this is what happens when this guy wins. He sucks. I hate this guy. So, as a person, I'm not a big fan. So I'm happy that he's out of the league. I don't think he's good for the league. He complains a lot. He whines a lot. And players and officials. I was like, officiators. We're not talking about weddings. He throws officials under the bus. And then he's also, apparently pretty trash in his personal life, but we're not here to speculate about that.
Well, there was Bountygate. You have to remember this man was literally banned from football for a year because of Bountygate. For a year. So it's
yeah.
Not to character assassinate the guy, but
no, that guy sucks.
Yeah. And I will say he does have a little bit of justification to complain about one game, that NFC Championship game that we referenced earlier. One of the most ridiculous referee malfunctions I've ever seen. So
karma.
Yeah, I don't know. It probably is karma for Bountygate making the league look bad, but Sean Payton is out for the Saints head coach. We don't know who's going to replace him. We don't really know a whole lot of who's going to replace most of these coaches on these teams, but 2 head coaches were in fact determined in the past week. First, Bears hire ex-Colts defensive coordinator Matt, is it Eberflus? Eberflus?
Yeah. Eberflus.
Close enough.
Yeah. No,
What do you
I
think about
hate
that?
it. I hate it.
hate it?
It's like the last, I don't know, the past 3 or 4 defensive coach hires for NFL teams, I feel like have not worked out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the most, because who's in the playoffs right now? We got the 49ers. That's an offensive head coach.
Vrabel's
the
defensive,
Packers, who
he's
were
been
just
really
kicked
good
out.
for the Titans.
He has, but his defense has not been the reason why. It's because of Derrick Henry and that offense and that rushing offense in general. It's not been his defense for the most part, outside of maybe Jeffrey Simmons, but he's only been efficient the past 2 years.
Defense hard carried them in the second half of the year. They were bad in the first half,
sure.
but second half but again, against mediocre
No, that's
teams.
fair. But I'm trying to think about even who's alive right now, though. We got the Rams, Sean McVay, offense. Like I said, 49ers is offense.
Yeah.
Who else is in? Bengals, Zach Taylor. He's not a real head coach, so I'm going to say Joe Burrow, offense. And then
I think the Zach Taylor hate is a little. I think you have to give him credit.
It's
I mean,
a little
after the way their
unnecessary.
defense played, I honestly
know.
do think we at this point should at the very least be questioning whether Zach Taylor is a good coach. I don't think we should just by default. He took the Cincinnati Bengals to an AFC championship. At this point in time, I think we legitimately have to look at him. I mean, first time they've won a playoff game in 31 years, and it's 2 in a row. We have to give this guy some credit now.
A little bit of credit. And that's
at
fair.
least.
You know what? That's fair. I'll give him a little bit of credit. But then the 4th team is the Chiefs. How could I forget the Chiefs? Andy Reid, offensive coach.
Yep.
All 4 teams remaining are offensive coaches. And I think it was something along the lines of like, and that's the reason. That's part of the reason why I don't like this hire. I mean, the Colts defense has been awesome, but you also have to look at the talent. You had Darius Leonard. You have DeForest Buckner on the defensive line, one of the most tremendous interior pressurers in the NFL. And they had a bunch of other guys who are coming into their own, like all throughout that defense. So I kind of wonder here, like, is this the right hire for the Bears? Definitely not, especially if they want Justin Fields to develop, because he has to get a crazy offensive mind in order to try and turn that around. And it's beyond me why the Bears would not try and hire an offensive-minded head coach to help out with Justin Fields' development.
Yeah, they need the offense. They need the offense.
Yeah,
so I agree. I agree with everything you said. I'm on the same page. I don't think a defensive coordinator can fix it because their offense's ineptitude is the reason they can't do anything. Their defense played some good games. Their offense did not. Except for, what was it, the Packers game? That's like the only game they played well.
I think that was the only game that they really actually did play well at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you have more pieces on defense, and I understand wanting to build up that defense, but like the number one thing you should do is focus on your quarterback.
Yeah.
Focus on developing your quarterback. Yep. Justin Fields needs a lot of help. And I think he can do it, man, but I hated this hire for his potential and for his future.
I'm going to be honest. I mean, this is probably the most that I can talk about the Bears in a month. With I just don't care anymore. It's the Bears. The Bears is the Bears. Let's move on. I can't talk about the Bears for longer than a minute without just not caring.
That's okay. That's okay. So next up we have the Broncos hiring, at least as of today, it's still reported. I don't know if it's official, but I'm fairly certain it is. Nathaniel Hackett, the ex-Packers offensive coordinator. Rob, I know you got some thoughts on it, and then I'll say mine. So what are yours?
I would like to call this out for what it is. This is the most obvious attempt I have ever seen at fishing for a quarterback and a wide receiver. The Broncos want Aaron Rodgers, and they probably want Devontae Adams too. They're just trying to get another Super Bowl with the whole Peyton Manning thing. They're like, okay, bring in old experienced quarterback, win Super Bowl. Recipes worked before, let's do it again. The difference is that I don't know if Aaron is necessarily as clutch in the playoffs. He's probably the best regular season quarterback technically and talent-wise of all time. But, I mean, in the playoffs, he's noticeably disappointing a lot of the times. But I guess the theory is that if you're in an AFC team, you're less likely to see the 49ers in the playoffs. So that's probably what they're banking on because Aaron Rodgers just cannot beat the 49ers. But this just seems like straight up just bait to try to get Aaron. I get it. I respect it. But if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, this is going to be hilarious. I wonder if they just fire Hackett and hire someone else if they can't get Rodgers.
So that would be hilarious if they fired him after 3 weeks or something. It would be like Josh McDaniels when he voluntarily left the Colts after like 3 days and was like, I don't want to do it. Never mind. I'm going to leave.
This was a bad idea.
Yeah. So my opinions, I've never really been impressed by Nathaniel Hackett. He was with the Seahawks for a while. And I remember then I was just like, man, I'm happy he's with them because like, yes, I believe he was with them when they won the Super Bowl, but it wasn't really due to him. You know, I'm not a big Nathaniel Hackett guy. I think that it's an upgrade for the Broncos, though. I do think that after getting rid of Vic Fangio, and that's not hard to say, but after getting rid of Vic Fangio and getting a guy like Nathaniel Hackett who does have those Green Bay ties, if they can successfully trade for Aaron Rodgers, I mean, that's already a bump up. You know what I mean? That's a bump up in fandom. That's a bump up in jersey sales and popularity.
That's
and
probably a bump up in 6 wins.
Well, yeah. And then when you're in that AFC West, you know, you got Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes. And all of them, I mean, they don't have amazing defenses behind them, and that's the nice thing, but the Broncos don't even have a quarterback. So if they get Rodgers simply just from acquiring Nathaniel Hackett and wanting to be Green Bay in the AFC Green Bays, the AFC Packers, then I think that it's a worthy hire, even if it's just for a couple of years. But I am tentatively pessimistic, not optimistic. I'm tentatively pessimistic because I was never impressed by Hackett in the first place. But of all the guys that they were hiring there towards the end of that cycle, or at least looking at it, I think outside of maybe Kevin O'Connell, they probably went with the right guy.
Yeah. I think Packers are going to go full rebuild mode because Rodgers doesn't want to play there anymore. And that means Broncos could give up a bunch of picks, try to get Rodgers, because I believe Rodgers is on contract. Devontae, I believe, is not.
He is. Correct.
So,
yeah, Devontae's a free agent after this year, but he can be tagged. But it wouldn't make sense to tag him because the Broncos are $45 million over the cap.
Right.
And if they just trade away Aaron Rodgers, that clears up almost the entirety of their cap concern.
Yeah.
So it really just doesn't look like it makes. And obviously, like with the NFL, we'll get into this more in the offseason podcast. The salary cap can be manipulated very easily in the NFL. It's not a hard thing to do, but it really comes down to whether or not Aaron wants to be there. If he doesn't want to be there, the Packers are toast, and that's just how it's going to be, unfortunately.
And it seems like he doesn't, but we'll see what the updates are in the offseason. And just the last coaching update. This is just a personal opinion of mine. I just wrote down, if Rich Bisaccia doesn't win Raiders head coach, we riot. That's all I have. I don't think he's going to. He's probably
looking
not.
like Josh. It's looking like Josh McDaniels is going to be their head coach.
It's just such a shame.
I don't get it. I don't understand why another AFC West team, after watching him be so bad in Denver, would want to hire him. But hey, you know what? Good for every fan base in the AFC West except for the Raiders. Sucks to be a Raiders fan.
I hope Bisaccia does get a head coach job. I don't think he will. I think he earned it. I mean, the players love the guy. But
yeah, I think he'll get like another high-end positional work job, but I don't think he's going to be a head coach.
But this is the future is now. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. AFC Championship game. Bengals at Chiefs. Who you got, Zach?
So I literally started off my opinion by saying, who knows, man? Because really, it just depends on what Bengals team shows up. If Jamar Chase catching 12 passes for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns shows up, I'm honestly picking the Bengals. But if the Chiefs show up the way that they did last week and the Bengals show up the way they did last week, there's a 0% chance that defense is able to hold the Chiefs back. Ultimately, really depends on whether or not it's going to happen is if the Bengals offense shows up the way that they have done several times this year. And if they can protect Joe Burrow. You know, if Joe Burrow gets sacked 9 times, they're not going to win. If Joe Burrow gets sacked 6 times, 5 times, I still don't think they're going to win. If they can keep Joe Burrow clean in the pocket, he'll be okay, because I don't think there's any way that Eli Apple, Chidobe Awuzie, and anybody else in that defensive secondary can hold up against Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce against Patrick Mahomes. So ultimately, I'm choosing the Chiefs, but I would not be surprised if somehow the Bengals win. But with my score prediction, I'm really thinking it's going to be something like 35-24. And that's because I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be able to hold up, that the Bengals are going to be able to hold up in pass protection against the Chiefs' front defensive line. It's just too good. And I think Andy Reid, since leaving Philly, thankfully as a ex-Washington fan, he couldn't do it in Philly, but I think he's going to do it again this year. I think the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same boat. The Bengals are a good team, and I know they beat the Chiefs before, but this is the playoff Chiefs. This is a different beast. It's a different monster. The Bengals barely beat them last time. I think the Chiefs will beat them. I think maybe by more than one score, maybe 1.5 scores or 2 scores. Realistically speaking, Chris Jones is just going to eat that Bengals offensive line.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
That's
it's
what I'm
truly
worried about.
terrifying. If the Bengals win this game, it's going to have to be a shootout. And it's going to be really hard to do a shootout when you have Burrow getting hit in the backfield every single play.
And it's hard to win a shootout against Patrick Mahomes.
It really is. But the one thing that I think is going in the Bengals' favor is that Tyrann Mathieu did have a pretty bad head injury in the previous week. If he does not play, that is a big issue because dealing with Jamar Chase, you're going to need a safety because you're going to need a second person to take care of that. And Tyrann Mathieu is probably the person who's going to be taking care of that. So if he's out.
Even just the leadership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just the leadership aspect is huge.
With that said, I think that Joe Burrow, the Iceman himself, I no longer feel comfortable betting against him.
Yeah.
My heart, my head, my brain, everything tells me the Chiefs win this game. I still don't feel comfortable just because we've seen what this man does. We've seen this attitude that this Bengals team has, and it is an attitude.
Swagger.
Right.
Swagger.
They are a dangerous team, and the Chiefs need to come out and they need to blow them out coming out of the gate because if they don't, they might be going home or I guess staying home. So
for sure, this
will be a really interesting game. I can't wait to see the rematch. Speaking of rematches, here we go again. I feel like we've talked about this game so many times on this podcast this year alone.
Yeah.
49ers at Rams. This is a complicated one, Zach. Tell me what you think.
So, as we were talking about earlier, the 49ers, are pretty beat up coming into this game, specifically with Trent Williams and George Kittle. Deebo Samuel is expected to be okay, but those two guys are the guys that I'm a little bit worried about. Now, the Rams have lost to the 49ers like 6 times in a row, right? Something like that.
6 times in a row.
6 times in a row. Yeah, they've lost to them 6 times in a row. But there's a caveat here. It's the playoffs, and the Rams sold out their tickets to their fans very quickly. And as long as people in Los Angeles don't care about being money grubby, which if I know anything about Los Angeles, it's everybody there sucks. So there's going to be tons of 49ers fans in that stadium. Honestly,
it's going to be a home game for the 49ers.
Yeah, if it is truly for me, this depends on whose fan base shows up. If the Rams fan base is there, I'm going Rams. If the 49ers fan base is there, I'm going Niners. And I know that sounds like a ridiculous way to gauge a game, but like it was so bad in the last home game for the Rams that Matt Stafford had to do silent counts, which led to false starts for their offense. So I personally am going to go with the Rams. I think that their fans are going to hold their tickets enough to the point where it's not a home game for the Niners. What about you, Rob?
I am torn here, and I think that this game will be decided based upon the following. Who will choke harder, the Rams or Jimmy Garoppolo? Because the Rams are choke artists, and Jimmy Garoppolo is a choke artist. Someone's going to choke harder, and I don't know who that is. Jimmy Garoppolo has played 2 awful games of football in a row and won both of them because of his coach, because of his teammates. In this game, you're looking at a team that has a really good defense and has Aaron Donald. And you might not have Trent.
LOL. Aaron Donald's literally a choker as well. So they might choke more.
I actually did not intend for that, but that's actually really funny. So
I'm sorry.
Given these injuries and just given the fact that it is the playoffs, I don't know if the NFL is scripted, but if the NFL is scripted, the Rams win. And if it's not scripted, I still think the Rams win. Deebo Samuel's going to have some just unholy kind of night for the 49ers to win this game.
For sure.
So it's tough. It really, I think, just breaks down to, is Jimmy going to do what he's done the past 2 times and just have a really dumb interception at a really bad time? And if he does that against the Rams, it might be over. But Kyle Shanahan's plan going into this game, he's going to try to run it down their throats. He wants 40 runs in this game. So he said against the Packers, he wants like 30 to 40 runs. That's what he wants in this game. Now, I would say normally, if the Rams get out to a lead, the game's over. But here's the problem. The Rams had a 17-0 lead on the 49ers last time, and the 49ers came back and beat them. So it might just not matter. The 49ers might just be the counter to the Rams. They might just do everything that the Rams can't handle. I don't know. So I've been so back and forth on this game. I honestly don't know, but I'm leaning Rams this time as well. I think the Rams are going to go to the Super Bowl. They're going to play the Chiefs. And I think the
Chiefs are going to wipe the floor with the Rams.
I kind of think that too. The Rams don't have that clutch factor. They just don't have it.
They don't.
But
it's like watching Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. And I don't know. Is it going to be Matt Stafford, the legend, or is it going to be Pick 6 Matt Stafford? It's tough.
It's tough. That's a great question. I guess we'll find out.
This game is nowhere near as easy to pick as the Chiefs-Bengals game, in my opinion. But
yeah, no, I agree, 100%. But I guess with that said, Rob, is there anything else you want to touch base on? Because it's getting to be that time.
Yeah. No, I think that's it. It's kind of weird for us because today's Thursday. We're going to be filming this podcast again in 4 days? 4 days?
4 days.
For Monday. These games are sneaking up. They're right around the corner 3 days from now. Yeah. So we're going to be back
we gotta
soon.
We got to figure out something to do during Pro Bowl week. We're not going to talk about the Pro Bowl.
I already took care of that, by the way. So for Pro Bowl week, what I've been doing is I've created basically a little script, and I'm going back. I'm looking at our podcast through the year. So during the Pro Bowl week, of course, we'll cover the Pro Bowl. No one cares. That'll be like maybe 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds tops.
At the most. If somebody tears an ACL, it'll be longer. Yeah. But,
We're going to do Babble of the Beltway in review. We're going to be looking at our fantasy selections throughout the entire season. We're going to be looking at our picks for the future is now throughout the entire season, basically evaluating how did we do. And then at the end of the year after the Super Bowl, we're going to talk about just general review of the entire season, not just for Babble the Beltway. So this is going to be just how our podcast did. And then at the end, we'll be talking fantasy football for the entire season. A lot of the guys that you don't get to hear about, like the Devontae Adams, the Cooper Kupps, because we don't talk about the guys that like them because they're on a team and you're starting them every week and there's nothing to talk about, right? You play them every week. So we'll finally get to talk about that. That'll be after the Super Bowl. So that's what you're looking forward to in the future is later. The future is later for this part. But
the future is later.
Zach, tell us about socials.
Of course, go ahead, follow our Twitter accounts, and it's Beltway Babblers. Our TikTok, now that we are approaching the off season, I will be doing what I promised to do because I don't know how to create content during the season. I'm just not good at it. But I will talk your head off about the draft. Part of the reason why I love college football. So get ready. I'm going to be getting into some really cool in-depth draft prospect breakdowns, mostly at quarterback, wide receiver, and defensive line and offensive line. Running backs, I'm just not good at evaluating them. I once thought that Mikael LaShore was the number 1 running back in his class. But he also, he was a, what's the word? Oh man, a casualty of the Achilles. That's what I'll call it. Anyways, I can't wait to show you guys that. That's going to be on our TikTok. That's also going to be on our Twitter. And yeah, just like and subscribe to this. Leave us a rating, unless it's a crappy rating. And then I'll go to your house and I'll tell your mom that you're a terrible person, and I'll leave you a bad rating and review, or with your husband or wife, or your dog if you're alone, you sad loser.
Hey, don't bring the dog into this, man. That's too far. That's too far.
Yeah, that's it, guys. But hey, we love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm Zach Miles.
I'm Rob Sahetsky, and thank you for listening to Babble of the Beltway.